Hello, vinyl community. It's Bill. I'm back with another vinyl finds video. It's been 2 weeks since my last vinyl finds video. I thought I was slowing down, but apparently I did not. I did actually slow down in that I went in some record stores, probably 3 or 4 times in that period and didn't buy anything. So that feels like restraint for me, but overall, the number is pretty high. I think it's around 70 records I've bought in the last 2 weeks. So I'm not going to show them all today. I've been debating how to break this down. So I bought in stores. I bought about 50 records maybe. Online, I bought about another 15. And then I had my very first VCLT package that I also want to show. So what I'm going to do is start with the VCLT, and I'll show then some of the store-bought records. I'm still waiting for one of the online purchases to come, and I kind of want to show all the online ones together because that's where I got sort of more intentional in what I was buying rather than being just opportunistic. And buying based on price and deal. And, I bought some things that are maybe not so well known and hard to find. I don't know, not super rarities, but just not the sort of things that you see in your neighborhood store. So, I thought I'd do some needle drops on some of those. So I'd like to keep that as a smaller pile to do separately so I can cover those and do some needle drops and not have it be a super long video. But without further ado, let me do the VCLT and then some of the store bought ones, and I'll come back. Maybe I don't know, 5 days or over the weekend or something, and do another one where I cover either the online purchases or the rest of the store bought ones. Okay, so without further ado, let me start with the VCLT. It was very kind of Ernie, the trailer park pimp, to send me 3 records. My first VCLT, so very, very, very exciting. So anyway, the first one is this album by a band called Old Growth. They're a punk band from Portland. They've also apparently played, or I'm not sure if they recorded under the name Old Junior as well. I'm not sure if they're still active or not. Really, I couldn't find a ton of information about the band. This is the back cover. But again, they're from Portland. This is this album. Trying to remember when it came out. Probably should have prepared more. Now this is from 2005, and again, they're from Portland. I couldn't find a website for them. I did find an Instagram account. I did find a Facebook account, I think, but it didn't have a ton of information. But I thought they were really, really pretty good. I don't have great vocabulary for talking about punk music anymore. I was a big fan of punk when I was younger. And probably, I'm not, when I say I used to be a fan, what I really mean is, you get older, and I like to think of the music that you listen to as being kind of like the score of your life. And the scenes in your life when you're in your 50s are not the same as the scenes in your life when you're 20 or 30, and just, you just don't play the same music anymore. So I still like this stuff, but I haven't bought a lot of new punk in the last, probably 15 years especially. So I don't know newer bands, and even the bands that were smaller, less well known that I maybe listened to like 20 years ago. I don't remember them quite as well, so I don't know who to say this is similar to, really. But they're they're not, certainly not hardcore. I had to even look to see whether they described themselves as punk, or whether any sort of site did. And yeah, they're described as punk, but they're not pop punk. But there's real melody and craft behind their music. It's not just fast paced, loud. There's no screaming vocals. There's no reggae ska sort of part of it. If anything, they're kind of rootsy a little bit. There's actually some harmonica on it, which I'd never heard in any punk album before. But I thought this was quite nice. I liked it. Because like I said, because I'm older, I don't know that this is going to jump into high rotation. But this is a winner. I liked it. I would recommend it to people if you ever come across this. It's pretty good. This is a fool's errand, my trying to say who they sound like. I heard maybe a little Rancid, or a little like Death on Wednesday, or trying to think who else. I don't know. I'm not even sure that Death on Wednesday is I'm trying to remember what they sound like, but they were a name I pulled when I was thinking, is that this kind of like that? I don't know. I could be totally wrong there. Like I said, I just don't have the vocabulary anymore. But it's quite good. If you do see it, if anyone knows anything about them, especially if they're still active. I found a bands in town listing for Old Growth, but I'm not even sure it's the same band. So I followed it, and but I would go see them if they came to town. I've got a friend who I think would like them even more than I do. So it'd be fun to, get together with them and go see a band that, because we used to go to concerts a lot together, and I'm not listening to the same stuff as I used to quite as much, and he still is. So I think he'd like him even more than I do. But anyway, thank you very much, Ernie, for that. I'm not sure that if I didn't know me that well, that would be an album that I would have picked for me. But it's really good. I do like it. So thank you. The next thing Ernie sent me was this Cass McCombs record called Tip of the Spear. This is from 2017. It's a double record. Now, Old Growth was totally new to me. I did know a little bit about Cass McCombs. I used to post regularly on a music message board, and someone who had similar taste to me liked Cass McCombs a lot, and so I checked him out maybe 20 years ago, or I'm trying to think whether that's timing's right. It probably isn't. It was probably more like 15 years ago. But I don't even remember what I thought about him. I didn't end up buying anything, so I guess it didn't really capture my attention that much. But it sort of seemed like in my wheelhouse anyway. So I was aware of him. I hadn't checked out anything that recently by him. Didn't know this album at all. I'm still getting to know it. It's not an easy record to get to know. He's I would have, before I heard this, I would have thought he was kind of indie folk, but this is kind of I'm trying to think how to describe him. It's not just a guy with a guitar singing, singer-songwriter for acoustically. It's got a little bit of a cosmic country feel at times. It's got a little bit of a jam band feel at times. It's a double record. It's kind of sprawling, meandering a bit. It's kind of jumps around stylistically at times. There's, like I said, there's a little jam band feel to it at times, which is not my thing. I like some of it. Other parts of it are not really my thing. It got droney at times a bit. The first song is like 7 minutes long. The last song is 10 minutes long. But there are good elements to it too. But it's kind of hard to penetrate and get to know just based on a couple of listens. But like I said, it's not just a guy playing acoustic guitar. There's a lot of musicians on it, and you can tell that they're talented musicians. The only one I recognized was Joan Wasser, who performs as Joan as Policeman. But I was looking up some of the other people. There's someone from the War on Drugs. I can't remember who other people played with, but anyway, yeah, it's it's interesting. But I'm not sure it's my thing. I like parts of it, but we'll see. We'll see. I haven't given up on it yet. But thanks, Ernie, for sending that. I can understand why you think I'd like it, but I'm undecided on it. Okay, the last thing from Ernie's package was this album. Picked up two things. Let me put that one down. Was this album called Furious Hoops. It was a record store day release. I'd never heard of this. This is copy number 235 from 500. It was from the year 2015. And basically what it is it's a bunch of songs that all are written about basketball from the 1990s. So it's I guess the guy from this label is a big basketball fan, and put this project together, kind of built around what he thought was the best period of basketball, and it even came with this John Sally card. So it's it jumped, I'll show you the track listing here. I didn't recognize any of the bands. I suspect a lot of this material was put together just for this album. I'm not sure that's true, but I suspect so. Some of the songs I liked, I was like, I'd never heard of this band. I tried to look them up, and I didn't find anything about them. And then I did find a Pop Matters article about it, and they talked a little bit track by track. And so some of these bands I didn't recognize, or artist names I didn't recognize, were artists from other bands, performing under this name. Like one person who was in a bigger, more well-known band. So I suspect this might be the only track that they did, and they did it for this project. But it ranges from sort of indie rock sort of stuff. There's one song that's kind of garage rock. There's like kind of modern soul for one. There's one rap song. It just jumps around stylistically. It's a really interesting thing. I'm not huge on comps. I'm not like the biggest basketball fan. I'm a very fair weather fan. I do watch it some, but I don't know. I watch the sports I really love. I watch so much that I only have so much time for the sports that I'm not as big a fan on. But yeah, this was interesting. So thanks, Ernie. Okay, let's start with my store purchases. So this is another Amoeba, not Amiga. Amoeba clearance bin find. Johnny Duncan. The album title is Johnny One Time. So I recognized the name, but I wasn't familiar with Johnny Duncan. But apparently he had a ton of hits, I think, later on in his career. This is, I think, his first album or his second album, and apparently back in this time frame, he was kind of being billed as like a Glenn Campbell type artist. He even covers Wichita Lineman on this album. But yeah, I don't know that other stuff, but this album is quite nice. To tell you that I am trying to be more restrained. I actually left this in the bargain bin for like a couple weeks and got around to streaming it, even though it was $1. So I'm trying not to just like be like, oh, that's $1. It sounds somewhat interesting. But yeah, this is pretty good. I did stream it ahead of the purchase. I like the title track Johnny One Times, When She Touches Me, Day Drinker. Thought it was pretty good. If you like classic country, if you like Glenn Campbell, you might like this if you ever see it. Okay, next thing. This is Everything But the Girl with Eden. This is one of their earliest albums. I forget whether it's their debut or their second album, but it's very early. I think this is 1984. This album, it came out under a different. This is the British version. It came out under a different name in the United States, which I don't remember that title. I think it actually had like a different track listing as well. I was a big fan of their album Idlewild, which I think came out in 1988, and I remember that was kind of like a somewhat of a breakthrough, not a commercial success, but it got more attention. It was easier to find in the U.S. It was my introduction to them, and I really liked it. And it was harder to find the earlier records in the U.S. Even on CD, which was what I was buying in the 80s. I actually bought this on CD in London in 1990, along with some of their other earlier stuff, and quite liked it. If you don't know Everything But the Girl, they're kind of kind of indie folk with a little bit of jazz sensibility to them. That's their early period, like Idlewild and prior, and then a couple albums after that, they sort of got more keyboard effects and kind of a little bit of dance music, and I kind of lost interest in them at that point. But everything Idlewild and prior, I think, is really good. So I found this. This apparently just got reissued, and the reissue is like $30 or $40, and this is the original for $5 at Amoeba. So that I was really happy to find that. Okay, next up, I got to pick up the pace. Another artist that I hadn't seen on vinyl, and this is a guy I'd been kind of looking for the last 20 years. He's a Canadian punk artist. Used to be in a band called the Young Canadians. I had a friend that I used to exchange music with. He lived in Vancouver, and he was a big Art Bergman fan. And turned me on to him. And this is his debut album. It's produced by John Cale, and I've never seen it on vinyl, and I found it in the bargain bin at Amoeba for $2. Apparently, a lot of people like the demo versions better than the debut. Apparently, John Cale's a big name, but a lot of people think he didn't do a great job, that he toned down the guitar, and that the raw versions are better. And I think they got released along with some other unreleased material a few years ago. I haven't heard them, but I've heard a lot of people say they like that better. But in any case, Art Bergman is not someone I see in the U.S. Very much, so I was happy to find that. Okay, next up, Lee Hazelwood with NSVIP, which is Not So Very Important People. I'm a huge Lee Hazelwood fan. I think at this point I own most of, if not all of his 60s and early 70s albums, and this was one of the last ones I didn't have. And I was really happy to see this in Amoeba for $10. I would have expected it to be much more. James Burton plays guitar on that. I don't know the album, but I love that period of him. Like I said, that was one of the few I don't have, so I was really happy to find it. Okay, this is, and I'm sorry about the glare on this. I'll take this one out. Well, it's still in shrink, so that only helps so much. But this is Neil Young's Hitchhiker, one of the archival releases. This was, recorded and originally intended to be released in 1976, but didn't get released. Produced by David Briggs. I think this came out maybe it was 2018. I'm a huge Neil Young fan, but I don't buy all the archival releases. There's so many of them. And I'm sort of the opposite of a completist. I think after a while, when even a great artist like Neil Young that has just such a huge catalog, at some point I almost stop buying stuff from them because I think if you like a large variety of music, how much are you going to return to something that isn't in your personal top 10 for an artist after the newness of it's worn out? So I take a very skeptical view that I need things when they come out. But I like a lot of the archival works, and this was $10, and I like that period of Neil Young. I know some of the songs. Powderfinger's on here. Pocahontas is on here. Captain Kennedy. So happy to have it for $10, but that's probably why I never bought it before. But it'll be interesting to see how much I like it. But I do like some of the songs I do know, so I suspect I'll like it. Okay, next up, Kelly Willis. This is her debut album. Yeah, I'm going to stop pulling these out because these are almost, unless they're a bargain bin, they're in the shrink anyway. This was sealed. So it's the 25th anniversary of her debut album, What I Deserve. I've never heard this, but I showed that album that she put out with her ex-husband, Bruce Robison. I really love those albums, and I have some of her solo material, which I don't like quite as much as those albums. So, I heard Chris the Long Cut talk about this and about how it was his favorite Kelly Willis album and how excited he was that it was getting reissued last year. I almost bought it a couple times at full price. It was $40, full price, and I kind of balked at the price, going, I don't love all of her solo work. Do I really need that at that price? And then I found this for $14 or $15, still sealed, and it was right next to one that was $40. I'm assuming they just said we're having a hard enough time selling one at $40. This other one that maybe came in as a trade but was still sealed, they said we're not going to ask that much for it. So I jumped at it for the $15. Okay. Also, and by the way, all of these have been from Amoeba. I really do shop at other stores, but like I said, I've been going every other day since it's just next to my gym, and I've been getting so lucky. So anyway, this is Bill Fay, Life is People. This is from 2012. I had this on CD, didn't have it on album. Wasn't really planning to replace it on album. I love those first two solo works from I think 1969 and 1970 or 71. And the new material is really good too, but not quite as good. I wasn't necessarily planning on getting it, but it was $10. $10 for Bill Fay. He's so great. We just lost him a few weeks ago. This is on this album. This was the first album of new material he put out after he was kind of rediscovered through some reissues that came out on CD about 20 years ago. And Jeff Tweedy became a big fan of his. Jeff Tweedy sings on one song, This World, on this album, and he covers Jesus, etc. on this. So, worth it for that alone, but it is a good album. All this stuff is good to varying degrees, but those first two albums from the late 60s, early 70s are amazing, and this is just really good. But happy to add it to the collection. Okay, also, then, that same buying trip. In the soul section, Don Covey, Seesaw. I'm a huge Don Covey fan. This is one of his best albums. One of my favorite soul albums that I didn't have on vinyl. I have it on CD. Always wanted to replace it, and I don't know, $16. I couldn't leave it. Okay, I think that's not the original. It's a reissue from some point, but in really great shape. And it's a great album. So I'm happy to add that. These next two are from the clearance section. Mavis Staples' debut solo album on Stax Volt, with, I assume Booker T and the MGs playing behind her. You've got The Choking Kind on this, A House Is Not a Home, Son of a Preacher Man, You Send Me, Good to Me. I actually thought I had this on vinyl, and I looked it up. When I saw it, I was like, I better verify I have it before I leave that behind, and it turned out I didn't have it. So it's not in great shape, but for a clearance bin item of someone of her stature, it was an acceptable shape. Let's put it that way. And it was only $3, so could not leave that one behind. Also, Bee Gees First. I love all of their orchestral pop, baroque pop type stuff. I'm not a big fan of the disco era, but I like all their baroque pop stuff. Have that on CD, but did not have it on vinyl, and it was $2 in the clearance section, so was not going to leave that behind. Next up, a band called Spirit Family Reunion with their album Hands Together. I think this is from 2015. If you don't know them, they're kind of a string band, kind of bluegrassy. Again, this is a band I had on CD and quite liked. I remember when it came into Amoeba, I saw it in the under $10 new arrival section. And I actually, I had it in my hand, almost bought it, and said, you don't need every band that you liked on that you have on CD, but not on vinyl. So I left it behind. But when I saw it pop up in the clearance section for $2, I said, okay, yeah, you got me now. Similarly, I remember that when this came into the store, they wanted like $7 for it. I'm a Jim White fan, but I don't know the album. It was like $7, and I bought a ton of stuff, over the last 3 or 4 months at Amoeba. So I was like, I don't need that. But when no one else wanted it and they put it in clearance for $2, I was like, yes, I'll take it. If you don't know Jim White, he's an Americana artist from Texas. I bought 2 of his albums for cheap recently, but I don't know that much of his stuff. But what I've heard, I really like. There's one album, I can't remember the name of it. Not very helpful, but that's really good. That's the one that I do know, that I really like. But I wasn't gonna leave another one behind for $2. Unfortunately, the one I really like, I don't think I'm ever going to see in a clearance bin. Okay, next up, Kate Wolf. She's a kind of a folk singer, lesser known from the 70s and 80s. I really like her. I don't know what to say about her, but she's really good. If you like folk music and you don't know her, check her out. Was surprised to see Tony Rice plays on this, plays some guitar, but he's mostly credited with harmony vocals. So I don't know this album, but I do have 2 or 3 other things by her, all of which I like. So I was happy to add that. I think that was $3. Next up, the Dells with what's this called? Love Is Blue. This is from 1969. It's on the Cadet label. If you watched my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of the Cadet label. A sub-label of Chess that Charles Stepney was the in-house producer on, and they kind of, add a lot of jazz influences, sometimes, string, string quartets and stuff too. So it's more interesting than I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not a huge Dells fan, but I'll buy any Dells album that's on Cadet because I love what Charles Stepney does with Axe. So I haven't heard that, but I'm excited to hear it. It was only $3, so seemed like a good buy. Next up, also from the clearance section, this is Mike Nesmith's debut solo album, The Wichita Train Whistle Sings. It's cut out here, $3. I've never heard this one. It's one of the few ones I've never heard. I own most of his albums on CD, and I've been replacing them over the last 10 plus years onto vinyl as I find them for cheap. Yeah, a Michael Nesmith album for $3. That one's not gonna stay in the store if I'm there. Country rock, if you don't know him, and he was in the Monkees. He was the one. Well, I don't know. I don't know the Monkees that well. I shouldn't say. I think I've heard he's the only one that wrote his own music in the Monkees, but maybe that's not true. Maybe feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about that. But anyway, I'm a big Michael Nesmith fan. I imagine many of you are as well. So let me move on. Next up is Dion with "You're Not Alone." This is from I think 1971. I'm having a hard time reading in this light. I think Dion. I haven't heard. I think I bought one other Dion record from the same time period, and my impression. I haven't listened to that one yet, but my impression is that he had a similar sort of early '70s period like Bobby Darin did, where Bobby Darin's released like 3 or 4 kind of folk type records that were very different from his earlier work that are really highly regarded. And I think Dion's had a similar period that's not quite as well known or highly regarded, but at least that's what I'm gambling on because it seems like it's similar type stuff. But I'll be interested to see whether how much I like this. But this was $2, so I figured I'd gamble on that. Next up is Split Enz with their album Time and Tide. This is from 1982. You probably know Split Enz were a kind of new wave band from New Zealand with Neil Finn and Tim Finn, his brother. I don't think I've ever owned that album. I've owned a bunch of their albums, but not that one. But I did own in college a compilation on CD. And my favorite song on that compilation was 6 Months in a Leaky Boat, and this is the original album that contained that song. So if nothing else, I have that song now on vinyl, and this was $2 again. So happy to add that to my collection. Next up, John Mayall's Blues Breakers with this is called Crusade. I was getting confused because I have this in a plastic sleeve that was for another band. I don't know John Mayall well. I've seen so many people in the vinyl community talk about him. I'm not a big fan of the British blues. I tend to like my blues more the U.S. Older blues artists from the South. I think a lot of the British blues gets a little jammy for my taste, but I know he's so well regarded that I've been buying his stuff when I find it cheap. At some point, I've got such a big backlog I've got to listen to that I haven't listened to any of these albums, and it's making me a little nervous that I've bought so many without listening to them. But that I probably should take a pause and not buy any more John Mayall before I confirm that I actually like him. But I don't know. I'm influenced by you guys. It's hard to leave them behind when I hear so many good things. So anyway, that's that album. I guess I'll just say with the personnel on it real quick. You got John Mayall, obviously. You got Mick Taylor, John McVie, Keith Hartley, Chris Mercer, and Rip Cant. So I think it's a pretty early one, late 60s. Next up, Doc Watson and Merle Watson on stage, double record, live album. On Vanguard Records, it was recorded at Cornell University in Town Hall, New York. I don't see a date on this. Um, anyway, well reviewed. I'm a huge Doc Watson, Merle Watson fan. Um, I've been buying anything I find for pretty cheap over the last like 5 or 6 years. I own most of his catalog, and I was really surprised to find that in the clearance bin for $2 because lately, I started seeing his stuff for a lot more than it used to be. Like some of the stuff is over $20 now, when I used to always find it really cheap. So I was happy to find that. I can't remember what kind of shape it was but it was in good enough shape that I wanted it. So anyway, I think there are a lot of Doc Watson and Merle Watson fans here. I'm sure most of you who like him would not have left that behind as well. Okay, now if you look at this cover, now this is either going to be great or terrible, one or the other. It's probably nowhere in between. But anyway, let me tell you who it is again. It's Bobby King and Terry Evans with "Live and Let Live." So that captured my attention, that cover, and I said, let me see what I can find out about this. Flipped it over. It's on Rounder Records. Okay, that's a good sign. It's produced by Ry Cooder. Another good sign. Looking at the musicians on the track listings. Ry Cooder on guitar, Jim Keltner on drums, Booter Oldham on piano. Also Jim Dickinson on piano, Jorge Calderon on bass. Let's see if there's any other recognizable names. I think that's it, but that's a pretty impressive group of musicians. Again, on Rounder Records, that's a good sign. And when I read the little bit of biographical information, they said Bobby King is from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and grew up singing in gospel groups before teaming up with Terry Evans. Terry Evans was from Vicksburg, Mississippi, and was writing rhythm and blues songs for Louis Jordan and others. So again, that's a good sign. I'm a big Louis Jordan fan. So I bet this is great. I mean, it would not. I knew nothing about this album before I saw it, but it would not surprise me if it's the best thing in that stack. Okay, so next up, we're nearing the end of what I'm going to cover today. Paul Simon's Graceland. I don't have to tell you about this other than it was a Mexican pressing in the clearance section for $3. Have it on CD again. Did not have it on vinyl, and probably wouldn't get around to buying it for full price, but for $3, I like the album a lot. $3, it's not staying in the store. Okay, last one. Laura Nyro with her album Nested. This is from 1978, if I'm reading that right. It was $3. Again, Laura Nyro. Not leaving a Laura Nyro album I don't own for $3 in the store. So that's it for now. I've got another equal size stack of stuff I bought from stores. I got the online stuff to show. I'll come back and show those on separate videos. Thanks again, Ernie. Thanks so much for that package. That was really really great. I really appreciated you sending me that stuff. And some winners. So thanks again. Hope everyone's well. I'll be back sometime in the next week to try to finish up with some more vinyl purchases and get up to date. And I really am going to slow down. I'm not even sure I'm going out for Record Store Day. I've decided at least I'm not buying any of the Record Store Day titles at a minimum, and I'm trying not to go out. Anyway, hope everyone's well. I'll see you soon.